Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Plat Chat episode 30.
6,000. 6,000.
It might be 6,000. I'm not too sure. Welcome back, everybody, to Plat Chat. This is going to be an eventful episode. We got a lot here. We're joined by a very special guest, Sideshow, as you can see from the lower third. It's Jake. Josh didn't wake up. He didn't turn up. I somehow managed to wake up, even though I live in the same house where this is being run. But
Bren is my player of the week for that.
Yeah, I didn't want to be here.
I should be your player of the week.
True.
I'm
Jake
coming off
Jake
the bench,
swinging.
swinging.
That's true. Well, we decided to add Jake because we actually had matches this week, so Josh became useless here on the show because he doesn't talk about the matches, right?
True.
Yeah. We already know that me and Bren bring the analysis, so we're the ones that were necessary for this week's episode.
I have watched about half the games this weekend.
Yeah, well, you did the night games, right? So your sleep schedule was all messed up.
Yeah, that is correct.
I would have loved
That's
to have
the
been
only
a part
reason
of the
my
night
sleep
games.
schedule was messed up. Obviously, Brent would never stay up till 4 a.m. under normal circumstances.
What you
Absolutely
need to realize,
not.
Bren, what you need to realize, Bren, is that the drop rates in Path of Exile don't increase during the night. Like, they still drop the same items during the day.
I would have loved to have been inside of like Bren's delusional mind, like sleep deprived at 1 a.m., standing up in his house in front of a big ring light as Jinmu just dives into cars. Like, just like, what the fuck is going on with my life?
I did listen to the cast though, and you were way more like loose and delirious, and it was just like all over the place. I loved it. I thought it was great.
It actually was all over the place. I was trying to make analogies for everything, but I couldn't think of any analogies. So I was making stuff up. I was talking about making some eggs and English breakfast in the morning. I don't even know. Anyway, let's get into business. So over the course of the weekend, the matches were obviously played, and the narratives were shattered across the board. Shock, no longer the most dominant team, ended up walking away with 2 losses against the Los Angeles teams. So that's pretty eventful. What do we make of this then? Because go ahead.
Can anyone defend the Shock? Like, because I'm pretty flabbergasted. I don't really know what to make of it. I thought it was crazy.
I kind of could.
Go on, Ned. Why could you defend them?
Evidently what they were running in the games was working pretty consistently in scrims against a lot of other teams, and we did see some other teams try the Rein Zarya Doomfist combination.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work this week. I think they made probably too many subs. I don't think you can kind of defend them on that. I think they just rotated everybody around way too much. But I think in terms of like strategy, if they practiced it all week and it worked, and then they lose 2 series, I mean, okay, we're gonna see that so many times with hero pools this year. I mean, flip a coin with these teams week by week. Like, would anybody still say the Shock are like completely done, like writing them off? Like, I still like this roster for the future. I think they just had a bad week. Like, shit happens.
What about you, Jake?
Well, I mean, I think I saw everyone saw Violet's tweet, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people jumped on him as like, "Oh, I can't believe you would do that." But I actually think for Violet, it's just like that tweet rings of sweet innocence to me, because I think it's very honest, actually. Like, I think a lot of people would say, "Oh, you never invoke. Oh, how your results in scrims, those don't matter." But I mean, to a team like the Shock, right? Like you said, if they've had success, why would you change it up? Yeah. And also for cycling their roster a lot. I mean, I would agree under normal circumstances, most teams, I would say, yeah, you got to just pick a roster and find what works for you and go for it. But for the Shock, I mean, that's how they won the grand finals last year, was using like the entire roster. That seemed like a key part of winning. So
yeah, but this was very extreme. Like, they were just like, one day they were playing Numbani and they had Sinatra off tank on Zarya, and then the next day they had him on DPS with Ans, and then they played Choi and like Choi Wrecking Ball. Like, it was all over the place. Like, I agree that Krusty has a method to his madness and they use all their players or whatever. But the way they were just like swapping between Architect on flex support, Rascal in support, and just all over the place, I think it was a bit too much. And I think they looked a bit lost because they just couldn't establish some kind of synergy. And it felt like if they had a plan going into the weekend, they sort of gave up on it, like coming Sunday.
Well, the one thing they will not have this year that they had last year is, remember, obviously way before grand finals, like stage 4, they were switching their roster at times and then it wasn't working and they would try it for like 2 weeks and then they would just commit to a team for a bit. They may not have that this year because of how hero pools and some of their players' heroes just pools in general are. And that may hurt them in the long run. Like, remember last year they tried to run like a Smurf on the Wrecking Ball and Striker on like just control maps and other types of points and whatnot.
This all derives from hero pools being introduced. And I've always been, you know me, I've been the biggest advocate against hero pools.
He's been a fan of that.
Like, I'm not a big fan of them because they lower the level of skill, the bar that we expect from just every team, I think, across the board gets lowered. But Shock's style, if you remember back to last year when they were in stage 1, they went, 4-3 over the course of stage 1. They weren't that good. If Josh was here, he'd argue with me, but thankfully Josh isn't here, so nobody has to hear his Papega takes. But they didn't look that great, I think, at the start of stage 1. They looked good, but they weren't a top team. And Shock are a team that once they find the established meta, rotate through all their players, find what works, stick with it, that's when they start to see really good success, and they can start to really hone the individual talent of each player and really slam down the fundamentals. You don't get to do that with hero pools. You just don't get to do it. You don't have enough time to know these comps. I think the Lucio ban really affected them hard because the comp that they're playing needs a speed boost to really just get maximum value out the Ryan, Zarya, and Doomfist. If you don't have the speed boost, you have to be really on point. It's a hard comp to pull off.
I casted one of their games on Sunday, and that was their constant struggle. And I kept bringing up the fact that Lucio is banned because they would play against a double shield composition, and they would try and like close the gap between them and the Orisa and the Sigma. And the Valiant would just back up like 2 feet, and the Shock would just kind of stand there in the middle, and everybody's just jumping around, just taking so much damage. And then they would just like die. And it was the same thing with the Gladiators against Seoul Dynasty. They were in the same composition, and they just couldn't close the gap. And then the issue is that, okay, your one chance is, all right, Doom, go in there with a bubble and get one and come on out. And like, they never got that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we saw, I mean, really good individual moments from a lot of the members on the Shock, I'd say, over the course of both their series. But it's just that change of playstyle. When you remove the speed boost from the game, and some teams, it's evident now, some teams are really reliant on the speed boost because that's all they've ever known. You know, Moff's Lucio has been such a key part of that team and the reason for their success. So what do we think then? Next week they're going to ping pong back to return a form, or?
I was going to say, what the oddest part about what you just mentioned is that like this is only an issue for them in the regular season because they've already said that playoffs there is no hero pool. So like, what do? Just kind of like tread water and like just hope to make the playoffs and then they're good like at the end. Like I think they'll be fine if who knows what we don't have a schedule, so who knows who they play this week. I can't see this team like faltering down to like bottom of the barrel.
I can already predict the comments for this video of just people angry at us being Shock apologists.
What do you mean?
Well, no, I wasn't really an apologist at all. I thought the substitutions were pretty bad. I will say, though, I think they're going to return to form next weekend because they didn't look good on May, and May is removed, and they get Lucio back. So I feel like next week's bans kind of help the San Francisco Shock get back to form.
And one of their oddest things,
I guess I am an apologist.
And one of the oddest things was who was playing like Wrecking Ball, right? They had to have Choi play the Wrecking Ball, and then they had to sub super out for Smurf because they wanted to go Wrecking Ball on occasions.
Wrecking Ball at all, actually.
No,
Choi did not look good. Anyway,
I mean, they sure they have flaws, so they're not without a question #1 team anymore, which is
right. But
makes the league more interesting.
Is there a #1 team? Maybe Seoul, based off of the way they played. But
I mean,
I thought Seoul was sick.
It's like Seoul and Vancouver, but they don't really deserve it because they've only played 2 matches. And I'm like, you have so few data points that they don't really deserve to be #1 and 2. So I don't really know what to make of it.
We can get on Seoul a little bit later as a topic. Yeah. For now, I want to talk about the Chinese games or the Chinese teams.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you guys actually watched them because they were super late.
I did.
I had to watch them. I had to cast a couple of them.
Can we come up with a crazy nickname for the Asian division as it's going to be just chaos?
Yeah, I mean,
like it's like a car
not in
crash.
my sleep-deprived state. I ain't coming up with anything, bro. I ain't able to do any of that. But what do you make of these Chinese teams trading a lot of wins then, Jake?
My first thought on the Chinese teams is that they seem to be more affected than the Western scene, at least so far, by hero pools. Maybe that's because it's just the beginning, because we saw extreme differences in like the way they were approaching the game strategically. I mean, we've seen this in the Pacific Division as well, or sorry, in the Atlantic Division as well. But I felt like it was even more extreme for the Chinese teams. Like they were playing totally different styles than one another. But I actually really like that. I think that shows that the teams themselves are looking for the way to actually win, right? The way to win, I think, in hero pools is not to subvert yourself to the meta, which is how it's been in the past, where like if you actually want to win, you need to play the best comp because it's going to be the best comp for 9 months because they don't patch the game. So like now that's not true anymore. I think to make an earlier comment on your point about hero pools, I totally agree. Hero pools bring down the level of play. No two ways around it. But if they patch the game more often, it wouldn't be necessary, but they don't, so it is.
Well, so you think that they've started playing these different comps then because they're just looking for compositions outside of the meta that we deem the meta, right?
Well, there's no point in thinking that there is like a meta because the meta changes week to week. So no meta is solvable within the time span allotted to you, in the sense that you won't have the data ever to determine like conclusively. Like that's how the Shock could be wrong about the meta. That's how the Shock could have success in all their scrims playing a comp, and then they go into their matches and it actually doesn't work against the comps.
Just play what you're good at then. That's kind of what it is.
Well, exactly, right? To your point, exactly. Like the way to actually win now is genuinely to play what you're good at. It's I wouldn't say entirely though. You have to balance it, right? Like there has to be some sort of strategic thought behind it, but also given the limitations of a hero pool, there's so many different ways you could go in a certain hero pool with certain heroes gone. Like the heroes are not, since they're not, it's not done like with a plan the way it seems to be done on live client. It's done like semi-randomly based on hero play rate. That you're gonna always have different directions to go. It's not like all hit scan are banned. You have to play Ashe now. Like the way it's like really obvious on live. The reality for the Overwatch League is that it's a lot more subtle. You're missing one hero from this strategy, one hero from that strategy. Like both of them are weaker than before. Which one's still better? Like that was a really difficult question to answer without a lot of data.
The wildest weeks are going to be when Lucio's gone. Like speed affects the game so much, and when you just take away it's like screw Lucio as a healer. Like nobody really cares about that. Like it's just the ability to just make everybody faster. Like once you take that out of the game for a week, like it throws everybody for a loop. Like nobody knows the hell.
Just to add on to that point real quick, in MOBAs, over the course of history of MOBAs, when they balance the game, changes to movement speed, to the speed of the game of individual champions or heroes or whatever, drastically change the win rates of heroes more so than any other stat.
Oh yeah, MS is the most important stat in MOBA.
Movement speed. It happens in Dota.
Not even close.
In the league as well.
You can give a hero 5 movement speed in Dota, and it has an effect on the win rate. It's nothing, but it's crazy. It matters. Because it makes a difference. Like you said, like it's a difference between getting through that second Orisa shield and getting halted back and just never crossing that line. Your Zarya never actually dealt real damage to players. That's what happened to the Shock, right? She's just shooting shields all game. Doesn't really work.
But I just want to talk about what you were saying, Jake, where you think that they're not abiding by the so-called meta because it's impossible to with hero pools. I think it's entirely possible that we're just seeing a different idea of what they think teams should be playing. The meta developing in a different way.
Yeah.
We spoke about this on previous episodes when we said with the different regions, it's going to be really cool to see again different playstyles be the dominant playstyle, different metas develop in these individual regions because of who they're practicing against. You got to remember these Asian teams are practicing against themselves in a circle, and probably some Chinese contenders teams and some of the Korean contenders teams, and like that's their circle. So it's interesting because now we've gone back to 2017 when we had different regions, when China was just playing Sombra McCree the entire time and Sombra Farah, and they're just playing wacky stuff. And
Hex is living in a hotel room in Denver, passing games at the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah, I mean I think it's I'd like to give the Chinese teams, the credit to be like, okay, let's find some out of the box stuff so that we don't get hurt too badly when the hero pools change. But I just don't think they're that good. I think it's more so that there's a meta that's developed because one team has seen success with that comp and everyone's just tried to match them in it.
I do worry that where the Chinese teams will suffer a little bit is, let's say for argument's sake, the hero pools like kind of work the way they do for the rest of the season. We rotate maybe between like 3 or 4 different like compositions that end up working, because you look at the hero play rates, and that very well could happen. The Chinese teams are just going to play whatever the hell they want to play.
Chengdu definitely is.
Chengdu
until next week, when
you would think Chengdu doesn't even have like the access to the hero rotation, that they're just like, oh well, no, I'll just play Genji. Like, all right, here I go. Like they don't even care. Like they'll care this week because Ball is gone, but it doesn't affect them during the year because they're only playing like right now between them. Yeah. The issue is once we get out of this eventually, and they're playing against everybody else, and all they've been playing is Genji, Tracer, Ball, Dive in their small bubble for against 6 teams, whatnot. How do they adjust to life after that? Like, I think that'll be because most of the teams obviously are not playing that type of way.
Well, it could be a blessing and a curse, right? Because theoretically, if the playoff meta is like Dive, then they've already prepared for it. But if the meta is like, oh, Brig on a double shield, then they're kind of screwed. But again, it's like Chengdu Hunters, right? And Chengdu gonna Chengdu, right? So they just play their explosive, volatile style. And actually, I think even if Dive is not the best meta, I think Chengdu could actually beat a lot of Western teams just by like surprise factor. Because if you're not prepared to take on the Hunters, I mean, you're just gonna get 3-0.
Jinmu is becoming one of my favorite players just because like he does like something amazing at one time, and then 2 seconds later, like he just tries to like blade a far out of the sky, like, and he's swinging like I was like.
Like he's
the guy's crazy. The guy's nuts.
You gotta be crazy to be picking Genji right now,
bro.
You gotta be crazy.
But we always knew Jinmu was
a little
mental.
bit of craziness.
We always knew he was crazy.
Exactly.
He sees the brig and he dashes at the brig. He doesn't even
let's fight. I'll melee you,
bro. Not even when the brig is just chilling by herself and she's used her cooldowns. The brig has rally running and she still has her shield bash, and he's still going for it. And he doesn't have a nano. He doesn't have a damage boost. He's just trying to kill her with like the blade. And I remember that happened during the cast, and I was watching it happen in slow motion before my eyes, and I was like, my God, Jinmu plays like me. He's literally playing. In TF2, we had a thing.
All right, Bren, I don't
know. But Jinmu just sends it. He sends it. He doesn't care.
In TF2, we had like a saying, right, where players would play for the logs. Because we had the sites afterwards where we had a site called logs.tf where you could see all the numbers, all the damage numbers, and like you would judge a performance based on your
medic.
Right, how many times you got the medic, or how high your damage per minute is. We had players in TF2 that played for the logs. Jinmu is a guy that plays for the frag clips. I swear to God. His decision making is always like, all right, I'm going to get into that SI not found frag montage. Like, this is the way. This is the way.
Do you think Jinmu watches SI not found?
Yeah, why not?
Dude, Jinmu's 100%. Every week he logs on YouTube. He goes to the Overwatch League YouTube channel. He's like, did I make that top 5 plays this week? Let me see. Ooh, is it my dash into the brig and then hit by a car? Is that in there? Like
he must have timed out during that car thing, right?
He looked lagged
I looked at it. That was so dumb.
That was 100% lag out. He's holding
so?
W. Yeah. He didn't dash into the car. He like hit the ground and then he's walking into the car. And he's not
hilarious.
No pro player like completely stops moving their mouse.
Jinmu. I don't know.
No. But the sure sign somebody's lagged out is when they're walking and they're absolutely not moving their mouse. That no pro player does that. Like walking and literally not touching your mouse is just, you never ever do that in any situation.
Lagged out sounds more likely than what I had in mind, because this happened to me before.
Happened to me before.
Right? No, but like not with the lag. But I popped off and accidentally unplugged my keyboard while I was holding down W, and I just wandered out into the streets, like into the enemy team.
Oh,
because it keeps your input down, and it just keeps it consistently down because you've unplugged your keyboard. So I in my head I was watching that, I was like, oh, Jinmu actually popped the fuck off and accidentally unplugged his keyboard and just walked into traffic. But
why don't you just turn your mouse around and walk back to your team?
Yeah, good point. Lag is way more likely. Yeah. Okay. Let's have a little chat then about the weekend as a whole, but not about the teams. Let's talk about the production aspect of this, because I think a lot of people, at least from what I've read online, a lot of people seem very understanding of the technical limitations and difficulties that we've been having. But I don't know, Johnny, you want to shed some more light onto why exactly it's so difficult to run an entirely offline setup to online within a week?
Because it's hard.
Because it's essentially, I mean, the production is completely different, right? Because people are actually like in their homes socially distancing compared to sitting in the same room with like TV production equipment.
Yeah.
I don't even know how much I can talk about what we're actually doing.
Johnny just explained social distancing. People sitting in a room with each other now are sitting at home.
Yeah, but I mean, that just is such a huge difference, right? People are not accustomed to it.
Well,
But
I can speak a little bit to it. So like there's like the producers are basically trying to produce this from remote, and it's early days, right? Like a lot of the games this weekend went relatively smooth. There were some where, you know, Mitch's audio just doesn't work or my audio doesn't work, but we were able to work through that stuff pretty quick. But just the ability to be able to turn this around in like a week, it's really impressive from just like our production and everybody who works in like IT in the back end. And I know they've been working really hard, and the same people, there's a bunch of people out there, Bren, now that like as soon as this stuff started to pop off, they became Twitter doctors, right? Now there's people who are becoming producers via Twitter. Somebody was like, somebody's like, oh, I got great advice. Everybody should get a light. Like, look above my head. There's a big fucking light there. Like, yeah, we have all the stuff. Like, relax. Like,
I liked as well
iron out some of the kinks. Yeah,
I like the amount of people who were like, I bet Mitch just doesn't have his mic plugged all the way in. When the one audio shit was happening, I was like, bro, get the fuck out of here. We all stream on a regular basis. Like, there's no one more well versed in this tech than we are, because we're just streaming all the time. We know how to use all the fucking equipment. There's no way in hell. It's like, I don't want to say there's no way in hell. There's a possibility that sometimes the issues are on our end, but across the board, like, a lot of the issues that you guys might be seeing is purely because we have just switched from a level of production that is akin to TV production, sports broadcast production, and they've had to move it to an online format.
And this production's gonna get back to that point. Yeah, and it's gonna get back to that point. It's just it just needs some more tinkering and refining. But I love that stuff, dude. Like I thought like people were like, oh, they're handling it so well. Like, I love the chaos of like my mic might be on, it might not be on. I don't know if you see me right now. Like yeah, sure. Whatever.
I don't know if Mitch agrees with that after casting.
Dude, no. The funniest thing was in one of the commercial breaks, Mitch was like, oh, you know, they said I'm the most tech savvy cast or whatever. And then they count us down, and Mitch goes to open it up, and his mic's not working. And he's I gotta take it. Mitch's mic isn't working. I was like, well,
the most whack thing was that it was actually working for like us, because like when we listened to him, whatever, when he spoke, whatever, we heard it completely fine. And then on broadcast, it's only one side of the ear. So we're like, okay, so where is the actual issue? Because we can hear Mitch fine, but on the broadcast, it's off.
It's like, that stuff's difficult to fix while we're also live. Like, they can't just like, all right, hey, tell the players to put it on pause. Like,
one final thought before we shift off this topic. But to put it in perspective. Every time the league is starting up again, generally speaking, it takes like probably, I'd say, a good 2 months of consistent testing on a 9-to-5 schedule to get it up to scratch. Yeah. And even then, you remember at the start of the leagues, we always run into like 1 or 2 minor issues. Imagine doing this in a completely unfamiliar setup within a week. Like, it's actually a miracle that we've even played games at all. I'm not gonna lie.
For all purposes, it was pretty smooth though.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's impressive the results that we got, given that you're taking a broadcast that was produced with literally every single person involved, or 95% plus of the people involved are within 100 feet of each other. And if there's any issues, that any one of those people can go talk to anyone else on that crew that they need to have an issue. If they're like, it's an issue in your territory, let me ask you directly, hey, can you help me? And then they can come look at the thing that is broken and maybe fix it themselves, right? Like, you have this team that's all together. And now that team has to function with every single person all in their own homes. Everything has to be done online. Everything has to be done through requests and processes. You can't just solve issues simply. So, I mean, the fact that, like you said, the fact that we're running a broadcast, and I think it's only going to get better from here, I think it's actually a really good week for the Overwatch League.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I think that way about it. That's how I
And also, if you're like, oh, well, we've done this before with like monthly melees and shit. I'm like, no, it's completely different. It's completely different. Like the way we have access to so many observers and like the observing is still on point. Like our graphics are still on point. The fact we have stats available the way we do. Like there's so many things that go into this broadcast that you typically do not have for an online broadcast. So like just adding all of that technical stuff is so
anyone saying like, oh, like comparing it to like, oh, well, we did this on OBS with a few button presses like a while ago, like F off with that.
Yeah.
Who is saying this? Is this ZP's alt account? Like what?
Johnny,
I don't know.
Johnny's got some people on Reddit.
Johnny's been digging down in the comments.
Yeah,
down to those
comments on
posts.
Reddit. They're like minus 27 votes. I scrolled all the way down.
Johnny's on Reddit like an undercover police officer, dude. Just monitor. He's on Reddit. He's monitoring all y'all.
Right.
Yeah, super secret agent.
Speaking of scuff production, I think it came about one of the best moments we've had in Overwatch Esports history, which was the live hero pool drawing.
One of them.
Cat edition. As Zoe had trained her cats to intentionally pick May and Brigitte. So, God bless Zoe for taking 12 hours out of her day to train Nori to intentionally remove
So the way
those
she
heroes.
did it was that she like not drenched it, but like put it with cat food or like cat candy. So that the cat would be more enticed to actually like walk up to the cars because they smelled like food.
But she did that for all of the tickets.
That way.
Right?
What?
She did that for all the tickets, not just individual tickets.
No, of course, for all the tickets.
Or else the cats be like,
what the hell, dude?
I'm not interested in these pieces of paper. I'll go sit on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I've been training Hugo for next week. Hugo, you guys can't see on your guys' screen, but Hugo's
Oh, you can.
directly. He's directly behind me. He's gearing up. You can see.
I can see him really build his energy right now.
He's
Really
getting ready.
momentum.
Yeah, no, this is one of our training sessions. He's getting ready to pick.
Good work, Hugo.
Hugo.
There he is.
There he is.
All right, but what do we make of these? What do we make of these hero pools then, Johnny?
You're cutting out. Hello?
Hello. Hi.
Out there,
check.
yeah.
Mike check. What do we make of these hero pools then, Johnny?
I love it.
Yeah,
Johnny.
I mean, poor Chengdu Hunters, right? Because Wrecking Ball is removed. I was hoping it'd be the return of the Yota Chad because we bring out Among Reinhardt again.
Yeah.
And I mean, Lucio's back in the pool, so they could probably make it happen. I wouldn't even be surprised to see them play like Reinhardt Genji with Jinmu on the Genji, and they just kind of go full 2016 or something
They'll
like
put
that.
like Jinmu on Doomfist, dude, and they'll just like run around like.
No, but you say that because it makes sense. But Jinmu doesn't play Doomfist; he just plays Genji, man. So
I almost feel like this is how the Chengdu Hunters like make their comp, like exactly what we're doing right now. Like, oh, well, what do you want to do? I'll just play Doomfist this week. Like, all right, sweet. You want to play Ryan? Yeah, I guess. All right.
But it's honestly a great hero pool.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I think
No May, no Brig, no Wrecking Ball.
Yeah.
I think we'll see the most consistent tank. Make a hot take here. I think we see the most consistent tank play rate so far this season. I think Ryan D.Va should not be swapped in this patch. You've got No May, who's the only viable control for D.Va, and you've got Lucio to enable Ryan, who is bar none the best tank right now.
Just to remind people real quick.
Why switch those heroes?
The hero pool rotations for this week, it's Wrecking Ball, it's May, it's McCree, and it's Brigitte. Just because we haven't mentioned it once. We've just been mentioning individual heroes.
Yeah.
But yeah, continue, Jake.
But,
Sorry.
I mean, I think D.Va is a hero that is completely out of control. And the only hero that even comes close to bringing her in and making you scared to play her is May. And May's out of the pool, right? So, like, the number one reason not to play D.Va that people would still play D.Va against is May, and she's gone. And you also don't have Brig as well, who's another key controller for D.Va, who's got the instant stun, who can stop boosters if she's in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the only stuns that you can actually reliably cancel the boosters on.
Do you think we'll see Sombra because of that? I mean, I don't think we will, but
maybe because also we lost McCree, so we lost like a lot of control. But to be honest, I think it'll be more. I think it'll be more in the vein of. I think people will try to the hardest hero to replace. I think is like McCree, but I wonder what people. I think people probably just go for like a Widow or something in that sort of comp.
We saw Soldier 76 last time, but that was when Widow and McCree was banned.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Soldier
Widow
might be playable in some circumstances, but most likely Widow will just dominate.
I think Widow play rate will go up throughout the whole season.
What do you
Probably
think
Hanzo
about
actually is going to replace McCree more than anything. Maybe double sniper, but I think probably
a bit of Tracer,
Hanzo.
bit of Winston Diva, Tracer's back maybe. I know Brigitte, it's kind of ironic in a way because Brigitte was one of the heroes that shut down the amount of Tracer we were seeing initially, but now she kind of enables it a little bit.
Yeah.
The 200 HP Tracer with the armor packs, it's kind of filthy, honestly. A lot of players are just immortal when they play it.
When heroes see stable pick rates, it's almost always because they're both counters and responsive to each other. So that's a great example as like Tracer and Brigitte, which the heroes are both like a Brig both enables you to survive a Tracer by armoring your backline and stunning the Tracer and making her getting like a field in which she's scared to play. But of course the Tracer works well with the Brigitte, so you run both all the time. Same thing happens for like heroes like Mei and Diva, right? Like Diva can respond to Mei, but Mei also responds to Diva, so you just play both all the time. Like whenever there's heroes that are both strong and they're both reactive and combo with each other, that's like the most reliable way to see them played a lot, is that they both counter the strong heroes and they work well with the strong heroes, and you end up with both teams mirror matching on them. I think we might see more mirror matches this week than in past weeks, to be honest, because some of the most important tools in the game, the most unique tools in the game, which in my opinion are Brig and Mei right now, are out of the pool.
I didn't get to watch the Florida match last week, but were they looking better because of Lucio being out of the pool?
No, they
rely a lot on the Brigitte play.
I mean, it was the same crap.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even remember the match, dude. Like Atlanta Reign were just so dominant. They just dominated.
They played Byram instead of Gangnam Jin for the first 2 maps.
Okay. Yeah,
they just like
Yaki tried to play Tracer against Edison and Sharp.
It was no bueno. It was no bueno.
They just weren't comfortable with double shield. They weren't comfortable with double shield, and you could tell. And Atlanta Reign just kind of dominated them.
I've been working on more
seems
Spanish.
Like one of the best teams with double shield as well, so it's a rough match.
No me gusta Florida Mayhem.
Remove hero pools.
No me gusta Florida Mayhem.
But this was supposed to be the year. Everyone were hyping up Florida Mayhem. They said to be the Florida Mayhem pop off, and here they are. And I put them at 18 in my power ranking. Damn, dude. Rip.
Well, you're so smart, Johnny.
What?
Yeah. Taya, who is actually smart though.
Hit him,
I just
Jake.
make fun of all power rankings. All power rankings are ridiculous.
Kick him while he's down, Jake. Kick him while he's down.
I say all power rankings are ridiculous and meaningless.
It's a good thing we got our
power
rankings.
It's just arbitrarily just ranking randomly teams.
It's a good thing we got our power rankings segment coming up.
No, I can do that. I'm just gonna subvert and disrupt.
Okay, but before that though, I want to just pick up myself once more because I actually did do power rankings at the start of the season, and in it I was one of the only people who highly rated the Seoul Dynasty, and right now they have been dominating this week of matches.
They're dunking on fools.
They are absolutely owning, and I think a lot of it can probably be attributed to Profit, just playing Tracer a lot of the time.
And Mei.
A little bit of Mei as well.
This guy's played a little bit of Tracer before.
Here's something I'm interested for your guys' take on with Seoul Dynasty. This week we saw them play double shield the whole time, Orisa Sigma, so they were able to play Gesture and Marvel. You think obviously Marvel's not going to be the diva player like they have Michelle on the team. Who is the main thing next week for Seoul Dynasty?
Might be Marvel, honestly. Marvel, I think has been more consistent. And we actually saw this from London last season. They ran... who the hell was the other main tank on London?
They didn't have another main tank. They just ran Fury and
Fury played
Fury on Orisa, right?
I'm thinking incorrectly. Ignore me, but yeah.
Okay.
I at least from the perspective of me looking at this team, I want to say Gesture because I mean Gesture's phenomenal. I could see a world in which we see Gesture seeing 100% playtime if Winston's actually viable. If we see a lot of teams running some Winston comps every now and then, because I would definitely run Gesture's Winston over Marvel's, but Marvel is the more consistent main tank, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, Marvel, I think Marvel's Sigma's better, and his Reinhardt's better. I think Gesture has a really good Orisa, really good Winston, and then like your ball, you just kind of throw out. I mean, I think it's pretty close who they go with. You may, if you want to play like Profit on like a Tracer, or you're going to play him on something that like is more dive oriented, maybe you play with Gesture because they have that synergy already. I don't know. I think that'll be the biggest question mark with this team going into this week because they were phenomenal last week.
I think Marvel is going to be a bit of a breakout player this year because I think he looked really solid last year when he took over for Fisher, when Fisher left the team. So I actually think Marvel is going to have like a breakout year. And I think like Gesture is really good on those dive heroes, as you say, but he's super chaotic. Like his Winston is super solid, but I don't know about his Wrecking Ball. Like if he can handle that amount of chaos, because he's so all over the place. And we love that with Gesture, that he's kind of wild and crazy. But I feel like Marvel is like a super solid pick if you want to make a team.
Gesture needs to play with Jinmu.
Oh my god, that would have been incredible.
Too much chaos.
Yeah.
Give me the all crazy team, dude.
We're talking about. We're talking as if some of these teams are playing next week. We actually don't know the schedule.
We have no
yet.
clue. Yeah.
At least as of the time of recording this, tomorrow there might be a schedule being released. In which case, we're gonna look dumb as again when Echo got released or like Echo got announced and we were like theorizing.
But
what
our amazing
do.
producer Kurt though is going to get this out Tuesday afternoon. So.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Who knows?
Probably
we
not.
might still get absolutely
Also-
pummeled.
Yeah,
we might
true.
release a schedule within the next couple of hours, but yeah.
But that's okay though.
Go ahead, Johnny.
That's okay. No, I just said hustle because Kurt's a G, you know, he's hustling over there.
It's true, actually. Kurt's
hard.
right now. he's-
I completely forgot the Vancouver Titans. Like I was sorry to go completely off track. I was looking at the standings and like
Vancouver
Matt win
exists.
and lost. Vancouver, I forgot they existed. I
They're a
mean,
team.
2-0. I mean, they're
don't
still
know.
a team.
Well, they've just gone back over to Asia, so they probably need a bit of time
Yes.
before they can. If I was
what,
a
them in
betting man,
London,
I would say
right?
they probably wouldn't be playing next week because they've got to get their.
Yeah, I would
get their
assume them
marbles,
in
you know?
London probably won't play. And then NYXL, they announced that they need some more time to get set up before they can start playing again. It sounds like.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
it seems like we might not see them for a little bit potentially.
All right. Any final thoughts then on Seoul as a team and their dominance? Do we put this mainly on what hero pools, or do we actually think this roster has?
No, I
really,
think they're
really
a good
solid
team.
Yeah,
potential?
they're really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think
put them
they're
as
a
my
really solid team.
dark horse. Can I claim the clout?
Yeah, no, I had them
yeah.
in that article we did in the early season. I had them as my dark horse championship contender as well.
Really?
Yeah, for that,
I rated them higher than Shanghai Dragons.
Yeah, where's that?
Okay. All right. Well. Okay. You cool. Jake, any final
What,
thoughts on
Bren?
Seoul?
I think you're right. They're a strong team, and I think it's because for a really simple reason, right? Like they took the players that had the most success on last year's roster, and then they added in players that they knew would be successful, they knew would be dominant. Like Prophet is like the strongest example, but I think Bedosin and Gesture both offer a lot for this team. Both really give them more dangerous tools to work with, especially in light of hero pools. You need that diversity. You want that aggressive, chaotic Winston player along with a more stable, slow defensive player like Marv. Marvel is really, I think like also I think having that, I think not relying on one main tank is the future of Overwatch with hero pools. I think that's the future because the idea that you're going to have one main tank and then maybe some off tanks because off tanks more diverse. I just think that's dead because you've got heroes like Sigma in the game that skirt the gap between off tank and main tank, and there's just too many off tank players have added heroes like Orisa, like Wrecking Ball to their hero pool, and are actually some of the better players on those roles. Like you just can't look at the game like, oh, there's the shield tanks and there's the tanks without shields.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a dead perspective now because with hero pools especially, we're gonna force players on both sides to cross that line. So I think like the future of this role is going to be players who can play lots of tanks, and like the restriction that you're forced to play all the tanks but nothing else in like 2-2-2 role lock means that the most valuable tank players will be the ones who aren't limited to one category or another. You don't want to have a subcategory within your role lock, right? Like you want the role lock to be the limit of your play, especially in a tank role, which has like the least. Is it the least heroes, or are there less supports?
I think there's less supports than there are tanks. I think
7
there's,
tanks, I think.
8 tanks?
Well, I think probably tank is still a little harder
yeah.
to master because I think the heroes are more unique, significantly more unique than supports. But and supports also have a bunch of heroes you don't need to practice. So
Got some of these predictions from us talent before the season just look absolutely absurd right now.
Drop names,
of
drop
course
the
they do.
ad.
Bro,
Drop
of
the
course
ad.
they do.
I mean,
That's
yeah,
like
but
such a
they're just shots in the dark. Bren's dark horse was London.
quite reasonable.
They look
I
pretty
think.
good, to be fair.
I think that's quite reasonable.
Quite reasonable. Scott's dark horse is the Valiant, which,
Okay.
they look pretty
Yeah, I
good.
mean, no brainer.
Hey, I want to say about the Valiant. Last week before their match, I said that I thought
I thought
Shock
they
was
were
favored in
good.
that match, but I said that Valiant I said it was 35-65. That was my prediction.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Just
match.
saying, I think this team has real potential to
We
be.
don't-
I think they're
yeah.
for sure making playoffs. I would predict them to make playoffs.
How many-
Where they go from there, I think it's very
Yeah.
possible we could see them go far.
How many points in the prediction meters does Achilleos get? He picked 2 dark horse teams. He picked the Paris Eternal, who look pretty good, but then he also has the Toronto Defiant. I think those
Interesting.
cancel each other
I
out.
don't know. You going for 2? That's a little. It's a little cheating. I'd say.
yeah.
It's
a little
definitely cheating.
Jonathan
50%.
Jonathan reinforce Larsson. Yeah, no, he's got. Who the hell did you pick at your MVP?
Oh. Erster, I think.
Erster, yeah.
Okay.
He didn't even play this past weekend.
Me and you had
Edison and
Seoul
Baby Bay.
Dynasty as our dark horses. Jake had the Houston Outlaws. No, he has Chengdu.
I'm off the payroll.
I was just VMing. Yeah. As soon as he got the jersey retirement done, he emailed our editorial team. He's like, all right, you can change some of my real predictions now. the article updated.
Bro, I had
Oh, well.
Rascal as my MVP, but the way Shock have been playing musical chairs with all their bloody players, I mean.
Well, Rascal is one of those players, right, where he could have had an MVP season, but he wouldn't have been recognized for it. So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, where he's never get the props he deserves.
You know
Could have
why
been a
Josh
candidate
didn't
for it
show up
last
today?
year, honestly.
Because
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Batiste
Josh's
playing as
dark
May.
horse team was the Florida Mayhem, dude. That's
Yeah.
why he didn't show up today.
I can't believe he went on that bandwagon.
Why? I mean, why not?
I mean, it's not totally
3
unreasonable.
people jumped on that.
This is
It's
the best
mayhem,
roster they've
dude.
ever had, right? Like, even if it's not, even if
This
they're not
is,
good, I still think it's the best
It's
roster. they've
so
ever had.
early in the season. You guys are talking like we're already in playoffs. And like these predictions can't come true. All of these predictions could still come true. It's a long season.
No, you gotta claim the clout while you can. You gotta clout for now.
Yeah,
Johnny's straight cloud chasing out here.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Do you guys actually want to do power rankings for this week?
No,
Because they
No.
seem
Kill it.
Yes.
ridiculous. Like, how do you do power rankings for this? Johnny, you've had the task of having
I don't
to
wanna
do
do-
power rankings, right? Because of the weekly
I
article.
don't want to do any.
I literally did my
I don't
power
want to do any
ranking.
power rankings.
And I spent like the first 30 seconds being like an apologist. I was kind of like, no one knows what's going on. Like setting up and then just,
Yeah.
I pulled out that sign someone on Reddit posted where it was like everyone's beating each other, like the arrows
Yeah.
and the teams. And I was like, yeah, this pretty much explains it. But anyway, here's my power rankings. And I just kind of went,
So we just don't
I
even
wanna
wanna
do
touch
power
this.
rankings because. Well, how the hell do you even rank half these teams? So
I don't know. I
Some
don't
of the
know.
teams don't play.
All the Chinese teams are
let's wait
traded
for
against
some
each
more-
other.
So it's like
Let's wait
Boston,
for some
yada,
more
yada,
data.
yada,
We
Seoul.
need more
and we're done.
data.
Like, let's go. Let's move on to the next
Yeah.
segment.
Yeah. Here's what you do: put Boston at the bottom, throw Florida right above them, put Toronto right above them, and then everybody else wherever the hell you want.
We do 2 tiers. We do tier 1 and tier 2.
Yeah.
Tier 2 has 3 teams. Tier
Honestly,
1
it's not,
has the other-
even fair to the teams at the. It's not even fair to the teams at the bottom because who the hell knows what
honestly,
happens
any of them
now
could
with
pull
how
out wins.
come and play. Like, any of them can pull out wins. So there's no point.
Yeah. All right.
There's no point. Kill it.
I think that's a good
I got
thing.
Overwatch to
Honestly, I
play,
think that's
my
a good
dudes.
thing.
You think that's a good thing?
I think it's a good thing that it's not like
Yeah.
like I actually don't like the idea that the game could be like I hate when the game is stagnant. I think that is when Overwatch is at its least fun, when people are absolutely perfecting a comp that you never change, because the single most important aspect of Overwatch that makes it different than other games is that you can switch heroes constantly throughout the game.
Right.
There's no other game that
Yeah.
has that, right? There's no other but from a strategic
The game is
perspective,
literally made for
the
it.
fact that you can change your strategy at virtually any time, right? There's a cost to changing your strategy, losing your ults, but the fact that that's a very realistic possibility, people will literally run back to spawn, will use extra time to go switch their hero because it is so valuable to be a different hero, is like that is what makes Overwatch. And when you don't get to see that because there's a strategy so good that you literally never stop playing it, that I think is like, it just kills the spirit of the game for me. That it makes me not
Really?
enjoy the game actually.
Yeah.
It makes you not enjoy the game.
Yes, I think ranked is at an all-time most fun since the game was in its early stages and nobody knew what was going on. Like the problem every time in high rank, there's always been some meta that develops where it's like, okay, well, we don't have a Mei, so I'm just going to troll and pick whatever. But no, but I think the same thing applies. I think it's just Overwatch in general. When there's like, I think GOATS was the worst Overwatch of all time.
But that's because you weren't good at it.
No. I maybe. Like, but I don't know. But I mean, you could say I'm biased, right? Because I wasn't good at GOATS.
Josh, be nice.
You could say I'm biased.
Yo,
or whatever,
don't let him slander you like that, Jake.
But I also think that genuinely just makes the game less fun. I think I've always liked the aspect of Overwatch. Like every game I've ever really enjoyed playing has been the same sort of game where you can change your strategy in the game. And I like if you can't actually do that because it's not viable, that is like it kills the spirit of the game. Like that's what makes the game fun is that I can change my strategy. But if I actually can't change my strategy because no other strategy works, that's tragic, right? It's like you have all these pieces. It's not like chess where you've got the pieces at the start. It's chess with like loadouts and you can like swap your queen for a different thing that does different stuff. Like that aspect of the game, if that existed in chess, you would be using it constantly. Right? Like, and the fact that you sometimes in Overwatch have not been able to use that is tragic. So I think Hero Pool's creating this environment where you are constantly changing, you're forced to constantly adapt. That is the spirit of the game. And maybe we're in like, where we've gone from extreme to extreme. We've gone from absolutely no changing ever to literally everyone changing all the time. Every match is different. And maybe there's a better middle ground, but I'd rather be on this side of the spectrum than the other.
I don't know, man. I feel like my opinion is at the end of this year, people are happy with the constant changes now. But I think at the end of the year, people will begin to not enjoy the league as much and they won't be able to articulate why. But I think hero pools will be the root cause because I actually saw a comment that triggered the ever-loving Christ out of me. Like, I almost turned religious again. I looked at it.
Ever-loving Christ.
Why?
I looked at it because the guy was like, it was a comment, because I made a comment on Plat chat saying how basically hero pools, with the way that they are currently introduced, kill any consistent storylines over the course of a season. Because from week to week, teams are having such drastically different performances from what we're used to. You cannot build a narrative, which makes it way harder to build up these overarching narratives. The reason why, when you watch Shock play, the chat really wants Shock to lose is because they are the champions and they were so dominant last season. If you have every team beating every other team every other week, you no longer have a villain team. You no longer have a team you're rooting for, like the Shanghai Dragons.
Yeah.
You just have every team is the same. They could win, they could lose, you don't really know. And I think at the end of the season, when this all plays out, if we don't make any changes, people are going to look back in this season and be like, "Oh, actually, Overwatch wasn't as good this year. Wasn't that good."
I think it'll be fine. I think it's just going to be like Jake said, just it's the complete opposite side of the spectrum to where we were, and I think it's obviously changes a huge shock.
It can be improved.
Yeah, I agree with Jake, but
it can be
improved because I agree with Jake in that you should be able to swap to a superior strategy. But what I don't want to get lost is like when the viewer sees a swap but doesn't understand it because there are so many swaps going on. So like if you swap to a McCree to counter a Pharah, cool. But if you swap around to a Doomfist and a Genji and then you swap over to a Tracer and it's like too much going on, it's like that when you start to lose people what is going on, and that's when you sort of disassociate from the broadcast and the spectator kind of view. So I want to see, I like the swaps. But you can't get too convoluted at the same time.
I don't know if you can hear Hugo. He wants to know who Bren's player of the week is.
Well, hold up, because I've got a point to make before we jump into that one, okay? I think the counter argument to the idea that I think it's a little bit almost naive to just assume that the bulk of strategy in Overwatch comes from hero swaps and compositions. I think a lot of it does, but there's a lot in the game itself. Even in mirror comps, there's a strategy that teams will employ. And I think that the reason people right now really like hero pools is because it's so overwhelmingly obvious when teams make changes. Whereas we're in GOATS, it was so nuanced and so hard to spot the actual changes the team was making to adapt in a game that it just went over almost everyone's heads. Like, unless you had been watching the game constantly and literally knew GOATS inside and out, there's no way you could tell that the meta shifted to have Zarya's taking more of the high ground because Sinatra started doing it first, or the fact that Diva players started copying Choi when he started taking off angles, or the fact that Lucio play just completely changed over the course of the entire season about how you played it in GOATs, or the fact that teams didn't go for big bang combos anymore like they did at the start of the game, and they started using their ultimates a little bit more intelligently. The game changes, and the compositions don't necessarily showcase that. That's the one good thing about hero pools, is that it's way more, I think, easier for a casual viewer to look at the game when it's being played and see that something's going on and something's changing. A team is adapting because they're making those swaps. But I still stand by the point. I think it's bad for the longevity of the league, but that's just me. I've made my point, and I've got the last laugh.
It's a valid point.
That's just your opinion, dude.
I've got the last laugh because I'm the host. Let's move on to my player of the week. I think we got a little tune.
You got a player of the week?
You guys,
you got a player of the week.
We're going to play the song.
It's Bren's player of the
And there it is, my player of the week. I think that. Thank you very much, Baby Blue, for the song. And my player of the week this week, I almost got death threats if I didn't pick this as my player of the week for Blackjack. Because the amount of people that messaged me, you can all guess who it's going to be. It's, of course, Nori the cat, Zoe's feline companion, who blessed us with the hero pools this week, outdoing 2 Overwatch League analysts. Who would win? One cat of questionable lifespan, I don't know how old the cat is, or 2 trained
35.
broadcast analysts who could not achieve what everybody wanted with the removal of May. How does it feel to be outdone by a cat, Matt?
This is Matt's post-match interview.
It doesn't feel that bad. It's completely random. I mean, the cat, like, whatever. I mean, people are hype on the cat this week. But cats, I mean, they're not that great. I mean,
that
in
cat
general,
has just farmed up.
the cat is not that great.
Bro,
You're
Matt,
talking about the player of the week here.
you're talking about my player of the week.
Bren's player of the week.
Yeah, you look. I mean, sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. I mean, I'm not going to say you're wrong here. I'm not going to say you're right.
But how does it feel, though, that a cat has somehow amassed more social media following than you have in the last 2 years?
Then who? Me?
Yeah.
That cat doesn't have a social media following.
Bro, it was trending on Twitter.
And I know
It was like 20K tweets.
Yeah, okay. 20K tweets about Nori.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, that's
Oh, you gotta respect the cloud farm.
That's the way it goes.
No way.
I'm actually.
I'm
not gonna
I
lie.
saw it and I was like, "What's this?" I didn't watch the drawing.
I was low key actually kind of annoyed.
You guys gonna pick, dude.
I was low key annoyed that we got this meme of Nori the cat. There's the trending tweet there. Trending 19. What is that? 19.8K tweets. My God. Yeah, people just fell in love with Zoe's cat. I mean, for good reason. But I was low-key annoyed that this happened because I actually wanted to pick a legitimate player this week because we had actually had games. The reason I had been memeing the previous week is because we didn't have games. I was pulling at nothing. And now I actually had something to pull from. No,
So who was your backup?
Who was my backup?
You could have given it to the production people. McGravy.
True.
Gravy's a
He was
beast,
pretty
man.
late.
Yeah, Gravy was going to be my actual my player
Gravy is a
chat
beast
player of the
this
week.
Custa's looking smarter every day with that Valiant Dark Horse pick,
Alright.
just saying.
Bro, even a broken clock's right twice a day, bro. You know?
Oh boy.
Fair.
I'm not. You don't want to give him credit just yet.
Hey, there it is, dude.
Don't want to give him credit just yet.
There it is.
What is next on the topics? I've actually.
Oh
completely forgotten.
man,
Oh, that's it. We're actually
That
done
was the
with
last
the
one.
entire show.
Topic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for filling in, Jake. Jake, you want to talk about the Houston Outlaws?
Yeah,
and the
thank you.
chances of
Thank you,
seeing-
Jake.
Well, I mean, Outlaws tough to predict much about them, right? Because they don't play for a while. I think the reality with hero pools though is that it's not about predicting them, right? It's about seeing what they got. Season goes on.
Did you end it, Kurt?